The announcement echoed through Terminal 3 of Chicago O'Hare International Airport, but 7-year-old Emma Chen couldn't hear it. She couldn't see the thousands of travelers rushing past her either, their rolling suitcases creating a symphony of chaos that meant nothing to a child who had lived her entire life in darkness. All she knew was that the warm hand she'd been holding, her father's hand, the one constant in her uncertain world, was suddenly gone. In its place was only air, cold and empty, and the terrifying realization that she was utterly, completely alone. Emma's fingers trembled as she reached out into the void, her small voice barely audible above the airport's din, "Daddy? Daddy, where are you?" Her heart hammered against her ribs like a frightened bird. She took one tentative step forward, then another, her white cane sweeping uncertainly across the polished floor. People brushed past her, their hurried footsteps creating vibrations she could feel but not understand. Someone's luggage knocked against her shoulder, spinning her slightly off balance. She didn't know which direction she'd come from anymore. She didn't know which way led back to safety. "Daddy!" Her cry was stronger now, edged with panic that no 7-year-old should have to feel. Marcus Williams was 45 minutes into his overnight shift, pushing his janitorial cart past Gate B7, when he heard it, a sound that cut through the airport's white noise like a knife. It was the kind of cry that turned your blood to ice, the kind that every parent recognizes as genuine terror. He'd been mopping floors at O'Hare for 6 years, and he'd seen plenty of lost kids before. But something about this particular cry made him abandon his cart mid-aisle and move toward the sound without hesitation. That's when he saw her, a tiny girl in a pink jacket, one hand gripping a white cane, the other reaching desperately into empty space. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and she was turning in slow, confused circles, completely disoriented. Marcus felt his chest tighten. His own daughter, Grace, was 8, just a year older than this child seemed to be. The thought of Grace lost and alone like this made his decision instantaneous. "Hey there, sweetheart," Marcus said softly, kneeling down to the girl's level. He didn't touch her. He'd learned from Grace's teacher that you should always announce yourself clearly to someone who can't see you. "My name is Marcus. I work here at the airport. Are you lost?" Emma's head turned toward his voice, and she nodded frantically, unable to speak through her sobs. Okay. You're safe now. I'm going to help you find your daddy." Marcus kept his voice steady and warm, even though his mind was racing. A blind child, separated from her guardian, in one of the busiest airports in the world. This was serious. "What's your name, honey?" "Emma," she managed to whisper. "Emma. That's a beautiful name." Marcus glanced around, hoping to see a frantic parent rushing toward them, but the sea of travelers just kept flowing past, oblivious. "Emma, can you tell me what your daddy looks like? What was he wearing?" The question was habit, and Marcus realized his mistake the instant the words left his mouth. But Emma didn't seem fazed. "He was holding my hand," she said, her voice small. "We were walking to our gate. He said we were going to see Grandma in New York. But then his hand wasn't there anymore." Marcus felt anger flash through him. What kind of father loses track of a blind child in an airport? But he pushed the judgment aside, there would be time for that later. Right now, this little girl needed him. "All right, Emma. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to call airport security, and they're going to help us find your daddy real quick. But first, I need you to hold onto my arm, okay? I'm going to stand up now." He offered her his elbow, guiding her small hand to grip his sleeve. "You just hold on tight, and I'll make sure you don't get separated again." Emma's fingers clutched the fabric of his uniform like a lifeline. Marcus pulled out his radio, but as he raised it to his mouth, he froze. Through the crowd, about 50 yards away, he spotted something that made his pulse quicken. 2 men in expensive suits were moving through the terminal with purpose, their eyes scanning the crowd. One of them was speaking urgently into a phone. But what caught Marcus's attention was the third man with them, dressed in a dark suit with an earpiece, moving with the controlled alertness of professional security. This wasn't just any lost child. This was someone important. Security, this is Marcus Williams, janitorial staff, at Gate B7. I've found a lost child, female, approximately 7 years old, blind, name is Emma. She's safe with me. Looking for her father or guardian. The response crackled back almost immediately. Marcus, this is Security Chief Davidson. Stay exactly where you are. Do not move. We have a situation. Within 90 seconds, the terminal around them seemed to explode with activity. The two men in suits were sprinting now, and Marcus could see airport security converging from multiple directions. One of the running men, Asian, early 40s, with terror and relief warring on his face, was shouting Emma's name. Daddy! Emma's scream was pure joy. She released Marcus's arm and stumbled forward, nearly falling in her haste. Marcus caught her gently. Whoa, hold on, sweetheart. Let him come to us. He's almost here. Then the man was there, dropping to his knees and sweeping Emma into his arms, his whole body shaking. Emma, Emma, oh God, Emma. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, baby. His words came out in a mixture of English and what sounded like Mandarin, choked with tears Marcus could hear but couldn't see, because the man's face was buried in his daughter's hair. The security personnel and the suited men formed a protective circle around them. One of the suits, a slim man with silver hair, approached Marcus with an expression of profound gratitude. You found her, he said simply. Mr. Chen was. He glanced at the father, still holding Emma. He received an emergency call. His father, Emma's grandfather, collapsed in New York. In the shock, he turned to take the call, and when he reached back for Emma, she'd wandered off. It was only seconds, but in a crowd like this. Marcus nodded, understanding. Not negligence, then. Just a moment of crisis meeting another moment of crisis. Life could be cruel that way. The father, Mr. Chen, finally looked up, his face streaked with tears, and focused on Marcus for the first time. You found my daughter, he said, his accent crisp despite his emotional state. You kept her safe. Just doing what anyone would do, sir, Marcus replied, but Mr. Chen was shaking his head vigorously. No. Not anyone. He stood, still holding Emma. Most people would have walked past. They would have assumed someone else would help. But you stopped. You stayed with her. His voice cracked. She is everything to me. Everything. And you gave her back to me. What happened next would change Marcus Williams's life, though he didn't know it yet. Mr. Chen reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, pressing it into Marcus's hand. Richard Chen, Chen Industries. Please. I need to know who helped my daughter today. Give me your information, your full name, your address. I want to thank you properly. Marcus felt uncomfortable. Really, sir, that's not necessary. I'm just glad Emma's safe. Please. The single word carried such weight that Marcus found himself nodding. He wrote his information on a piece of paper from his pocket, and the group departed, Emma waving over her father's shoulder toward where she knew Marcus stood. Marcus returned to his cart, his hands still shaking slightly from the adrenaline. He finished his shift and drove home to his small apartment in a modest neighborhood 40 minutes from O'Hare, where his own daughter Grace was sleeping peacefully. He checked on her, as he did every night, and thanked God that she was safe. He didn't expect to ever see Emma Chen or her father again. 3 weeks later, a courier arrived at his apartment with a package and a letter. Inside was a check that made Marcus's hands tremble, enough money to pay off every debt he had, to fix his car, to buy Grace the piano lessons she'd been dreaming about. But more than that, there was a letter. Dear Marcus. *, you gave me back my reason for living. You cannot imagine what those minutes